double work on this one to verify certain accusations I made against Anna the Star Wars girl, or that Star Wars girl, or whatever she's calling herself, and the Revenge of the Sith issue, where she's appealing to Revenge of the Sith to show that Kenobi's a stupid series and Disney's dishonoring the fans. They don't understand the canon, blah, 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 blah. But as I said on the EFAP, she was fairly negative towards the Revenge of the Sith. I mean, she was really brutal. And ironically, she's actually Anomaly's partner, because what happened is Anomaly and Rick Worley were arguing with Glib and PS, but then he had to leave, so she substituted. But she's not a big fan of the prequels themselves. She says, yeah, I don't think they're well written overall. And she had definite specific issues with Revenge of the Sith.
Was written very well, but I mean, I was playing devil's advocate because I, as much as I don't think it was written very well, I do like the movie.
Yeah, it's been frustrating listening to this, but to say the least, I am actually on the team that the prequels are not the best written things in the universe.
Well,
so are you arguing against Anomaly or with Anomaly?
Well, I think that they're not the best written, but I don't agree with a majority, if not all of the points that you've made.
I see. So you think they're not well written, but we're just bad at explaining that.
I guarantee you, everybody who is on this will be considered.
It's good at the storytelling. I can follow it. The dialogue, that's my biggest problem with it. Like, I like sand, really, or I hate sand. Right. I don't like sand. You know, that kind of stuff is what bothers me. But as far as the storytelling,
Why?
And I know it's because they changed it later, but they should have had Leia be born first, because in Return of the Jedi, Luke's like, tell me about, your mother. And she's like, oh, I can kind of remember images. And I'm like, he was alive a full minute longer than Leia. And he was like right next to Padme's face. If anyone should have any imagery of their mother, it should be Luke, not Leia.
He ain't remembering that shit.
Maybe neither of them remembered, and Leia was just lying.
Well,
I'm assuming it's just a plot hole, because obviously
that was one of the biggest things. I'm just like, after everything else, I'm just like, it should have been Leia. She should have been the oldest twin. And then, okay, she had a tiny, tiny, tiny little baby belly. Those were some big ass babies that came out of her. There is no way she had twins that were premature that were that big.
Ass babies.
Those are details. Those are not plot important details.
She was in danger?
Because
the danger seemed to revolve around her, not the kids.
There was no way she was 9 months pregnant. Did you see how little her belly was, especially with twins?
Oh yeah, barely fuckable, I know.
I always thought that kind of odd. I was like, yeah, she's oddly...
I guess... go ahead.
Go.
All right then. So what's the official cause of death for Padme? Spoilers. But what is the official cause of death?
Wow, Rags, jumping ahead, huh?
Well, I mean,
lost the will to live, Rags.
Lost the will to live, yeah.
Lost the will to live.
Apparently that is like a medical condition. Like, actually die from that, like losing
the will to live.
Get this, I was actually
I feel like losing the will to live leads to other things.
Died of a broken heart.
But I'm just like, she just gave birth to two very good reasons to live. Like,
that's a great point.
So this is good. I mean, she's not uncritical. So even though she's, quote, defending the prequels as devil's advocate, she is saying there's a lot of stuff here that was really stupid and dumb, and I don't like it. I don't specifically like what they did with Padme. But in terms of the issue I brought up, and the issue she brings up, it's the ending of The Revenge of the Sith, and where it places Vader as Sidious's second in command. Now, she might be correct, right, as a possibility, but if so, that's contradicting the original trilogy, where Vader is not second in command, certainly not in the first film. Trying to be fair-minded, it could be Revenge of the Sith did establish Vader as second in command, and he just got demoted, and then he got promoted in Empire Strikes Back. That's possible, because there's a huge time gap, but that would seem really incoherent. So I'm going to maintain, there's definitely a lot of contradictions. I don't think, though, the ending to me is a contradiction. I think we see Tarkin. It seems obvious Sidious is in charge, and vaguely Tarkin is a few steps below, but he's still far above Vader. Why Vader is standing next to Sidious? I just take it as a stylistic thing. That's it. It's nothing else. It's just stylistic. They're standing close to one another. They're seeing the Death Star being constructed. That's all she wrote. The ending itself is problematic, and there are a lot of contradictions, but not that specific scene, although it's very jarring, confusing. Now, getting back to Anna, is she contradicting herself? I mean, I guess you could say logically she's only saying a lot of Revenge of the Sith was silly and stupid, but the ending was solid, but she does say the ending did have a lot of problems. It's a bit confusing. I guess you could say, well, she's not really committed to saying specifically the command structure is confusing. Most of Revenge of the Sith is very confusing, but not that aspect, and that's the aspect she's talking about, and using it against Kenobi. That's logically possible, but I would say that's insanely convenient for her purposes. And she doesn't even admit at the very beginning of that video, oh, by the way, I don't really like the prequels to begin with. I think they're badly written. So, to me, it does seem like she's being very, very deceptive. Now, maybe she just changed her mind, right? This isn't her only time talking about the prequels. It is probably one of her most lengthy talks on the prequels, as far as I know. But it could be she changed her mind and now has a more moderate stance on the prequels. But there we are. And to be fair to her, Revenge of the Sith, which has had its anniversary a while ago, has definitely stirred the fandom in a weird direction. There's definitely a part of the fandom that now considers this not just a masterpiece, but the greatest Star Wars film, the greatest film, one of the greatest films of all time. I would join them a little bit. I do think if you want to nominate Revenge of the Sith as one of the greatest films of all time, that's plausible, but I would put it in the top 50 and probably near the bottom. But if you're saying it's one of the best films of all time in the top 10, I would have a lot of issues with that. Now, I'm saying that as someone who does put Phantom Menace in the top 10 films of all time. And in the past videos, I put it at number 3. I might, frankly, reconsider that, but I don't think I'd move it below maybe 6 or 7. But Revenge of the Sith in the top 10 or top 5 greatest films of all time, period, of all films ever made in film history, I'm a little torn on that. I think that's being a very partisan take on what this film is and its ultimate value and quality. I mean, we just don't know. We're human beings. We have to make our best guess. We don't really have, despite what some people say, we have an objective, literal scientific method. We really don't. So I can definitely credit with Revenge of the Sith with doing a lot of brilliant things and having the potential to do a lot of great things, but I really can't skip over. It does also have a lot of failures and problems. It is one of those rare films where you can simultaneously say it's a really great film, but it's also a really, really bad film in many ways. It's just in one of those weird spaces. And I've gone back and forth in what ultimately I would give it, as even as a grade or number. I think I'm comfortable somewhere in the space of 6 to 6.5, which I know would be shocking because that's similar to my Black Widow rating, but I think that is a fair judgment of what is good about this film, but also bad about the film. But definitely the fandom is split now between various factions that think this is the essence of Star Wars and is very exceptional, not just among the prequels, but among all the Star Wars films. And Anna, as far as I know, doesn't join them. I don't know, I gotta be honest, if we're talking pure quality, Force Awakens is much better than this, and The Last Jedi is way better than Revenge of the Sith. But in terms of sheer quality, yeah, maybe it's in Rise of Skywalker territory. But if you think that's where great films lie, I think we'd have disputes about what is greatness in film, at least in my opinion.